Hello, welcome to ArtTutorialsOnline.com. My name is Paul Priestley. Today we're going to be looking at how to draw a face by just using light and shade, looking for the tones, no detail. This is really intended for intermediates, not for beginners. So, let's make a start. Yes? Come on then!
Actually, we're using two pencils for this sketch, a 2B and a 4B pencil, sharpened very hard, as you can see. Now, we're going to take a centre line right down the middle of the face, and I'm drawing a line halfway across, which is halfway down that line to where the eyes are, because eyes are halfway down the head. If you need to know more about proportions of a face, see my earlier video on drawing a face in proportion. Now you can see here that I'm just suggesting the eyes. Everything is going to be drawn in this sketch using very light shading. I'm not using outline. Okay, the idea is to look at your model, look at the photograph, whatever it is, and to select the tones. So we're just blocking in the tones. You can see the shadow underneath the eyebrows here, and I've just represented the eyes just by those simple blocks. Now I'm going to take the center of the eyes. That gives me the length of the nose. As I say, check the previous video for the proportions, and all I'm going to do now is just to draw the shadow underneath the nose. I'm not drawing the nose. You see, take the length of the nose, and that will give me exactly the right measurement from the nose to the chin. And I'm just going to suggest the mouth by just a couple of very simple lines. You see, a bit of shading underneath the top lip or bottom lip there. Now, I'm going to draw the sides of the face. Now, this drawing is going to have one or two, shall we say, slight errors to it, which I'm going to show you how to correct as we do the drawing. Because one of the things you'll need to do in your drawing is keep checking the drawing as you're going through. Now, I'm going to, as I say, do this very quickly so you can see how the drawing develops, and then you'll see how I make slight adjustments to it. So I'm just blocking in the head, as you can see. There we go. Okay, so we've got the basic shapes now. Basic proportions are okay. Now, I'm going to suggest the eyes. This is where we start blocking in with a slightly darker tone. We've started with a light tone. We're blocking in now and working up harder. You see the lines beginning to develop. So I'm beginning to suggest the shape of the eyes. Okay, I'm pressing on a little harder with my 2B pencil, just blocking in those shapes. Get the basic shapes of the eyes, you can see how it works. I'm going to work a little bit more on the tone and the shadow. You'll get strong shadows just underneath the eyes, or the eyebrows here. And you can see the eyelid will always stand out slightly because it tends to stick out and it catches the light. See how we're just blocking in this little area just above here. So what I'm doing is trying to suggest shapes and tones. I'm not looking for outlines. You can see here with underneath the nose how we're just beginning to suggest the nostrils, the top lip. You see how it slopes down slightly. You see your brain begins to fill in detail. It doesn't need all the intricate detail drawn at this stage. What we can do is just suggest it. Now, I'm emphasizing certain lines. You can see around the chin, that squareness to the chin. Here I'm drawing the side of the face. I'm eventually going to push that in a little bit, but I just want to show you how I can correct that later on. So I've got the lines here for the side of the face. I'm just suggesting that, but then I'm just going to block in again, just very simply with a hair, just suggesting where it is. You see? There. Now, we come back to the eyes. The eyes are always the most important thing to develop, so we need to be looking at these very carefully. I'm just putting a few little darker lines in. You see how as soon as you get a dark line against that lighter shading, it begins to bring things out, begins to suggest things, a little darker on the eyes. You see, I'm bringing everything up at the same rate, very much like you would do if you were painting this figure as well. You start building it up, building up the tones layer upon layer, you see here. So beginning to develop the eyes, a little bit more detail around the eyes, just a few little lines here and there, little shading. You see how the eyes are beginning to develop. And I'm making slight adjustments as I'm going on. Can you see that? There. So darker tone now. You see how that darker tone is beginning. And I've now got 3 different tones on my drawing. You can see how the drawing is developing. You've got to keep doing this, looking for this. Don't try and get the whole effect in one go, because it doesn't work. You've got to build it up slowly, stage by stage. This is how it works, you see. So we're working a little bit more around the eyes, a little bit, you see here, coming down the side of the nose, very, very lightly in tone, suggesting the nostrils now. You see a little bit darker tone, nice strong shadow. You see how the shadow casts its the nose casts the shadow underneath the lips. You get those 2 little lines just above your lips, you see. So I'm beginning to just suggest that. It's all about suggestion. The more you can suggest things, the more accurate it looks. The top lip, I'm just going to develop that now, and as you can see, just put a slight curve to my triangle. Always shade the top lip, not the bottom one, because the top lip always sticks in, the bottom one sticks out, so the bottom one catches the light. It's always going to be lighter. You can suggest the bottom lip, as I'm doing here, by shading underneath it. You see, as we're doing here. Again, darker tone there, and then gradually softening the tone. It's all about varying the pressure with the pencil. Really do need to vary the pressure. There, you see, working down the side of the face here. This will take some time. I've obviously speeded this up. The original drawing took about 45 minutes, but we've speeded this up a little bit. So you may need to take a little bit more time than you can see here. You see the subtlety. You see how with the nose, I'm just suggesting the nose, but also suggesting, you see the cheekbone here. I want to leave a little white space there because that makes the face look a little more three-dimensional. So I'm shading around that highlight where the cheekbone would be. I'm coming down the other side of the nose. Can you see now how the nose is suggested? I don't have a line down the side of the nose. This is really important. You see, you want to suggest things. Suggested things always look much, much more effective. See now darkening the eyes a little more, making them stronger. You see how the eyes begin to come forward a little bit more now. You see, developing it even further. You need to keep coming back, keep suggesting. Little shadow underneath the neck here, underneath the chin. Makes the neck stand out, just suggesting where the ears might be. There we go. Now you notice even with the hair, all I'm doing is just suggesting a few lines, just darkening a few of the lines. It just helps to put a little bit of emphasis, let your brain fill the detail in. Little shadow just at the top of the nose there because you have that little dent there, which you need to put in. I'm just blocking in lighter shadow now around the eyes and around the face, just trying to suggest a little bit more of the structure of the face. You see we're coming down here. This is all very light tone, very, very light. You've got to be subtle with this. It's got to be subtle because if you're not subtle, it doesn't really look very effective. You always build it up stage by stage. So you can see here the face is looking, beginning to take some structure to it. I'm now going to start suggesting darker tones. Now you can see here how the chin begins to stand out because of the lightness. The eyes, I'm going to darken the eyes because as you can see here, I need a little bit more structure. We've got to push the eyes back a little bit. The whites of the eyes are a little too strong, and I'll need to come back to those later on, as you will see. Just suggesting a little bit of hair around the side, darkening that tone there. I'll have to equal that up on the other side now, you see, to create a bit of balance in the drawing. The hair I'm just suggesting, I'm not doing any detail to it. You see, just a few little flicked lines. Try to get the lines to follow the shape of the head. It always makes it look a little bit more interesting. You can see here, I'm suggesting very little for the hair. And yet the brain fills in the detail. Just suggesting a little bit more around the side. Now you'll notice the left-hand side slightly wider than the right-hand side. I'll come back to that later on. I'll show you a nice, neat little trick of how you can solve that problem. A little bit more on the cheekbones here. You see, just suggesting that shadow coming in from the left. But maybe it's a bit too strong, that. We'll come back to that. I will just work a bit more on the eyes, as you can see here. I'm darkening the whites of the eyes because they're a little bit too strong. and I need to push the eyes back a little bit. So I'm making the eyes stronger. You'll notice, though, if you've been looking very carefully, the eye on the right slightly smaller than the one on the left. We'll come back to that later on. You'll also notice I put a strong shadow underneath the eye on the right hand side. You see too much of a contrast there. Again, that's something I will need to come back to. Don't leave strong sharp edges. We want soft subtle edges. That's what this drawing is all about. So we need to make sure we don't make those sort of mistakes. Now I'm going to develop the lip a little bit more now. You can see here I'm just suggesting a little curve underneath the lip there, at the top lip. You can see now the bottom lip is becoming a little bit more structured. I'm suggesting just a darker tone on that chin, which makes it stand out a little bit more. You notice the mouth needs to be a little wider. I'll put a little bit of shading on the end of that later on. Need to develop the nose. Have you noticed the nose isn't quite working? So I'm just going to strengthen the shadow underneath the nose there. We'll come back to that a little bit more in a second. Now, the eyes. Notice now, you see how I'm widening the eye on the left? And have you noticed now it works much better? There we go. So, a little bit more development underneath the chin. Here, just rounding that off a little bit, just making that structure a little bit more down the side of the nose. I'm still not satisfied with the nose though, so we need to go back to that. I'll come back to that shortly. I'm going to just continue working on the chin here, just take down that highlight a little bit darker shadow, just to give it a little bit more structure. The mouth, again, I've just darkened slightly the top bottom lips and just a tiny bit of shadow around the corners of the mouth, you see, just give that a slight uplift. Now, the nose, you see, you see that line that just goes round the nose, connects up with the nostrils, just gives the nose that little bit more structure. You see, if you look very carefully now, a little bit of roundness round the end there. It's just those subtle details, you see. Here, look, just a little bit of edging around the edge of the nose. You see that little subtle shadow there just suggests the side of the nostril. There, that's all I need to do. Now, the left-hand side of my face, I've decided is too wide. So, rather than rubbing it out, what you can do is just use a bit of dark tone in the background and go over it, you see. I can now strengthen that edge down the left hand side, and you can see how if you have got one side of the face not quite working, you can see you can develop it, you can go over it, put a bit of dark tone in the background. It covers up the drawing. Now I've got a nice curve on the left hand side of my face. I need in a second to adjust the curve on the right hand side. You see, I want to get rid of that little point, so I can rub that out, just round it off. You see, so both sides of the face are now the same. So you're looking for these little details. You're looking for details to adjust all the time, comparing one side with the other, always looking for a little bit of shade here, a little bit of highlight here. And hopefully you will have learnt something a little bit about how to draw the face using tone. Good luck with your drawing.
Thank you for watching arttutorialsonline.com. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please subscribe to my channel. It'd be much appreciated. And if you really enjoy the video, then perhaps you can share it with your friends as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.